There we go.
Lily did very good in our session. This is her roadmap to success. Now, one little tip, I'm petting her in kind of small circles on her chest, which can be a calming way of petting a dog. It helps kind of reassure and calm them. You can see her ears are more forward. And when I first came in, her ears are further back, and that's kind of an indication that she's a little bit insecure. Also, she kind of was lowering her head. She had some stiffness at times when she was uncomfortable. When she would, whenever to get the treat, she kind of leaned way into it, so she's keeping her feet as far away as possible. A little hiccup, and so those are signs to recognize that she's a little bit insecure. Now, because she has some insecurity issues, I'd like the guardians to get in a habit of, whenever possible, petting her under her chin. We want to facilitate this nose-up orientation. Insecure dogs look down, and proud dogs have their nose up. The guardians were trying to show her a lot of love and affection because she's had a bad background and she's, clearly has some psychological issues. But anything your dog is doing when you pet your dog is what you're reinforcing. So if we pet her for being nervous, we're going to enhance that. And I've seen dogs that act nervous to get attention. So we don't want to do that. If she's nervous and upset and we want to comfort her, we can touch her, let her know we're with her. That actually relaxed her right there. But we don't want to pet her. We also want to avoid patting on top of the head. We can caress and we can scratch, but they don't really like it when they're patted. And again, for her, that's going to facilitate that nose down. So whenever possible, we want to try to pet her under her chin. And she's probably going to move her head away from it, at least initially, because she feels like, I'm not confident enough to raise my nose that high. That's all right, keep doing it until eventually she feels better about it. Let me see. I'd like the guardians to really put a premium on passive training, probably more than anything else. And that's basically just narrating whatever she's doing. So if she comes up to you and just comes on her own, pet her and say the word come. If she sits down next to you, pet her and say the word sit. If she lays down, I would use the word crash, but I would come up with a fun word, maybe something the kids can help come up with a word for this. And so if she lays down on her own, we're just going to pet her and say that command word. And not good sit or good down or her name and down, just the down. And again, I wouldn't use down. And be careful how you say it. I say crash is my word for lay down. If she lays down, I'm not going to pet her and say crash. That sounds different than crash. Mm-hmm. So we want to be consistent. We can baby talk if we want, but we want to always baby talk. So however you're going to say the word, just be consistent in how you say it. But passive training is going to take the humans in both households a couple of weeks to get in the habit of doing so. So maybe we say the word reward. So if somebody says the word reward to you and you're with Lily, you look at Lily and whatever she happens to be doing, you pet her and say that word, and when we do it right away. You have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to make the connection as to why they're being corrected or rewarded. So if she sits and I pet her and say sit within that 3-second window, after enough repetitions, sit means a reward and also means a sitting position. And then when we tell her to sit, she's more inclined to do so. So I would do this with sit, with come, with lay down. When she jumps off the couch, I would say off for that. When she goes out the door, you can maybe say outside. When she goes in the door, you could say inside. When she goes to her dog bed, I would assign a command word for each dog bed. I have one client that they love going to Colorado, and so they have a 3-story house. They have a dog bed on each floor. Each dog bed has a different designation. The one on the main floor they call Aspen, the second floor they call Boulder, the top floor they call Vale. And they can sit there in the bottom floor and say Vale, and the dog will run up to the 3rd story and be on the dog bed. Now the way I do this is I leave a treat or toss a treat onto the dog bed. When the dog goes over it, the second it touches its lips, right after it goes into their mouth, I say the word Aspen or Vale or Venice or whatever the words you want to use are. Make it a 1-word command. And this gives you some power because then you can later on, not power, but it makes it easy to communicate because you can say Venice and the dog goes over to Venice. And so we're able to direct if somebody's going to do something that's going to startle her, we tell her to go to Venice before it startles her. And so the second she touches, the treat touches her lips, right afterwards we say whatever the command word is. Also, every time that she comes into the office or wherever, we should leave a high-value training treat or something on the dog bed. Now, I prefer dog beds that are flat, that are with foam inside, not like feathers because they're kind of get lumpy. I want the dog to be able to look at the dog bed and see, ooh, there's a treat, there's a bully stick, there's something on top of that. Now, the guardians have been giving her rawhides, which she does like to chew on. I'd like them to switch over to bully bits, which are the bully sticks just in little pieces. Rawhides are soaked in bleach and ammonia, and because the dog ingests them, it's not very good for them in the long run. Also, she really seemed to like the tricky trainer treats that I used, so I'm going to leave the rest of the bag here. If she keeps on resonating with those, then keep on using those. A lot of people are like, oh, these are from Rachel Ray, you should like these. So the dog turns his nose up. It's what the dog likes, not what we like. Now, one of the houses, the kids, I think, probably are trying to pet her, engage with her to get her to feel better about them. But, I mean, she really warmed up with me, but I spent about 2 hours in a session without petting her at all. I gave her some treats, but I gave her space. I didn't try to force her to do anything. And instead of going and picking her up, I got her to come to me. So I would like to see people breadcrumbing her with these high-value tricky trainers. So if we let her see that we have a treat, we put one right here. If we're going to try to get her to come to us, if she's sitting over here, and I want her to come to me, and I hold the treat out with my palm up, and she doesn't come, I might take a treat and put it halfway distance between me and her, wait for her to come to that treat. When she's about to do it, about to lick it up, then I very slowly hold my hand down like this, a couple inches away. So she's already halfway there, and then just to, I'll come and take that extra couple steps to come and get that treat. And so now she's getting an incentive every time she comes towards somebody, something good happens, I get a treat. Dogs get over things by literally moving forward, and there's a positive association with the person. So we can actually play a game of come on the couch. So we'd have one person sitting here, one person sitting there, and then we're going to have the dog going back and forth to us. And every time it takes that treat, we're going to say the word come right after it touches their lips. Now for her, she was interested in treats up to a point, and then I think she kind of got full. She's a little dog. So we want to make sure that we're breaking these treats in half. Don't give her too big a piece. We want to get the most mileage out of them that we can. But we want to get her moving. Now the Guardian's done a really great job of taking her out on walks, which we definitely want to do because dogs experience through scent, like I talked about in the other video. But also, the more active we are, if you work out a lot, you have to eat a bigger meal because you need more fuel for your body. If we're not moving, we're very sedentary, our digestive tract slows down, our sleeping pattern gets longer. There's a lot of things that kind of slide into that direction. So we want to move her the other direction. I'd like to see her getting 4 walks a day instead of 2. I'd also like to see, because she has some potty training issues, so when we take her outside, we're going to say the word potty right after she starts. We're not going to say go potty because that doesn't mean anything to her. And I'd recommend that we come up with a new word so that it doesn't have the baggage of whatever potty had before. So maybe we say business or whatever word they want. We wait for the dog to start going. We say business once. We have a treat. And we have the treat ready to go. Don't let the dog see it, but say business as soon as they start. When they finish, I crouch down and I hold the treat out, perfectly out to the side. When she comes over and takes it, puts it in her mouth, we say business again. And pet her a little bit. So this gives her an incentive to want to go outside, and we're associating the word with the action. Now, for walks, the other thing is every time she potties outside, after she potties, I'd like to take her for a walk. Even if it's just 3 or 4 houses and then back, we're letting her sniff, and on the walks, we should let her sniff and explore. We don't want to pull. We're not walking her for exercise. We're walking her for stimulation and changing her environment. Eventually, hopefully, when she's over these problems, the Guardian will call me back and we'll teach her how to walk in the heel. But right now, we just want her living life and be more dog. So every time she potties, we take her for a walk afterwards. She likes the walk. So that's another incentive. So every time after I pee, we go for a walk. Well, every time I go outside, I'm going to start peeing so we can get that walk in. Now, taking some kibble with you on a walk and once she eventually can sit on command wouldn't be a bad thing to do as well. When we're walking, every once in a while she stops sniffing, she's looking around, tell her to sit, she sits, give her a piece of kibble, and we walk a little bit more. We can also use her kibble for other things. We'll talk about mealtime. She really likes wet food, which most dogs do. Wet food is really just dry food that has water, wet, canned food I should say. It's just dry food that has water with more moisture. So you can give dry kibble and add hot water to it, and I swirl it around, makes a little bit of a stew. They have to drink the water first before they can eat the kibble is softer, and it's a little bit more palatable. Now, the Guardian's been leaving food in the bowl all the time. She eats the canned food right away, but the dry kibble she leaves, and she'll come and eat some of it later. We want her to only eat right after the human does, because dogs eat in the order of their rank. I think it would be more comforting for her to eat after an authority figure. But also we want to give her an incentive to eat. If there's always food in the bowl, then why do I have to eat now? I can eat later. So if you if you're in the wild and you catch a chicken, well, you eat that chicken. You don't say, well, I'm going to save this for later because it's going to go bad, or mice, or whatever. So for her, we want her to see the food in the bowl as an exception. So when we're feeding her, I like to feed her a little bit of the dry kibble. What I would do is take 1 or 2 of the tricky trainers, demolish them into little tiny bits, and maybe rub a little bit on the kibble, but also sprinkle it around. So maybe half of her meal is the dry kibble, and then if she eats that, then she gets a little spoonful of the wet food, or the canned food. Now, the temperature of food matters, so what I would do is make sure we take the can out, or the portion out at least, and leave it on the counter, so that it warms up and is not refrigerated when we give it to her. Normally she would not be sitting on somebody's lap like this. She would have been running away. So I don't have her on a leash, but the leash is something we can definitely use for her as well, because she seems to kind of give it up a little bit. A lot of dogs do. When the leash is on, I don't have the ability to resist. When the leash is on, my flight mode kicks in. I'm just going to run away, and she did that a couple times. So the Guardian may need to, now this leash is about a 1/2 inch. I like a 3/4 inch, a really tiny little leash for her size. And what we want to do is put it on her. The Guardian can sit on it. So if this part is going across my lap, underneath me, and I'm going to give her maybe a foot or 2 and let her sit next to me on the couch. Right now what she's doing at this home is she's going and sitting on the other couch, and she's kind of burrowing herself in a little cubby between the cushions. So if we're on the couch and she is burrowing herself, try to call her over, get a treat, and then take that cushion away. So when she goes back, it's a little bit more open. We want her to spend more time in the open. Now if she wants to recuse herself and go back there to kind of reset, that's okay. But we'd like it to be progressive, so eventually she's spending more time outside than she is in there. And also taking her, one of the Guardians said that one of her kids really wanted to engage with her, but she kind of shies away from him. Well, I didn't really try to pet her for the first couple hours I was here, so what I'd like that child or any of the children to do is get into using these treats. Maybe put one here, get her to come closer to us, closer. So maybe I might have a trail of treats, and each one's only an inch away, and so she might take it and run away. That's okay. Put another one. We want over time, when you have enough repetition, then she'll feel comfortable with us coming over and coming to us, because every time she does, something good happens, and we're not trying to pet her. We're not trying to snatch her. We're not doing anything bad. Eventually, we will be able to touch her, and then we will be able to pet her, and she's comfortable with it because we took our time. You have to go on the dog's time, especially when we have a dog like this. This is a dog psychology session. Most of my sessions are dog behavior sessions. We'd also, using food as a reward and a means to motivate her can be beneficial as well. So we might feed her a little bit less out of the bowl and more with these tricky trainers to get her to do different things. So she does squirt in and out the door at times when she's let in and out. Just putting her on a leash and walking her, what we do is we prop the door open, we walked in, we walked over here, did a circle, walked back inside, walked around the dining room table, brought her back out. Couple times, so doing that over and over helps her feel a little bit more relaxed with that situation. If they're running, they're in that panic mode, they're squirting, that kind of, I gotta get through there quick before my tail gets caught, or I get kicked, or whatever happened to her before. So we don't want to feel sorry for what happened for her before, because we can't fix that. All we can do now is help her in the now. Walking her in the house, actually on a leash, wouldn't be a bad thing. Keeping her on a leash at different times in the house that she wants to recuse herself would be helpful as well. We ran out of space on the camera, so I'm going to splice these two videos together. I can't remember what I was just talking about. But using the leash can help the dog feel a little bit, it's almost like training wheels on a bike. When we're learning the bike, there's some confidence that comes with that. It gives us a little protection for her. I think for dogs that are psychologically disturbed or insecure, it gives them a little bit more, that's great, leaning on my hand. But it gives them more ability to give up because they understand the human has more control with the leash. We don't want to pull her around. Oh, that's I think what I was talking about. So to get her off the couch, I would pull a little bit. As soon as she took a step, I would relax the leash. And it took a rocking back and forth. And sometimes you literally rock them and get some momentum going. But eventually she got to the edge and then she jumped off on her own. When she jumps off, that would be another command. I would pet her and say the word off. So that becomes another command word. Let me see. Now the Guardian has a dog kennel, a plastic one, under his desk at work, and she goes with him to work. He's taken the top off, but she still likes going in the kennel. She has a kennel in the bedroom that she sleeps in here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the bedding out of the kennel, the little dog bed out of the kennel at the office, order another one that's exactly the same one. So take the new one to the office and put that back in the kennel. And then take the one from the office. Actually, I have something else I'm going to talk about the office in a sec. But take the one from the office, bring it home, and for the bedroom up here, what we're going to do is we're going to close the door to the kennel. We're going to leave the kennel where it is. Make sure we do this when she's not in the room. So kind of close the door, come in, put the new dog bed right in front of that kennel, right in front of the wire part where she walks in and out, and then leave the dog door closed, or the kennel door closed. So then that night, she goes over, she can't get in her kennel, but there's familiarity. It smells. I've slept on this many times at the office, so she'll park herself there. Once she gets comfortable enough with that, and she's going over and laying down right away, she's not whimpering or pawing at the kennel, what I would do at that point is I would take the kennel away, put it in the closet, again, without her being around it, and move that dog bed where the kennel was, in the same exact spot. And then basically, she should go onto that dog bed. Now, we can do things to make it a little bit more of a positive association by leaving like a bully stick or a really high-value meat treat there on the dog bed, so she creates even more of a positive association. And again, I would give each dog bed its own designation. And then eventually we could start moving that dog bed to whatever part of the room we want to put it. Now, in the office, I would prefer not having her. It's okay for her to recuse herself into those little cubbies at times, but she's spending probably too much time there at this point. She's now 6 months old. So at the office, what I'd like to do is, once we have the new one there, we're going to leave it in there in that kennel for a couple days, get some good smells in it so it's familiar. And then what I would do is one day maybe have a staffer, take the bedding out of the kennel, take the kennel away from under the desk and put just the bedding down there on the floor by itself. Now, she's still under the desk and it's enclosed, so she'll feel comfortable and she'll probably just still go there because there's no better place for her to be there. Once she's had about a week of that, she's nice and comfortable, then each day I'd like to move it 1 inch closer to the corner away from the desk, out in the open. So it's still behind the desk area, it's away from the door, it's away from the seats, but it's eventually going to be open. But we want to do it an inch at a time. If we move it there, she might not go there. She might just stay in the same place under the desk. So we want to get her progressively, gradually going over there, maybe an inch a day, or if an inch is too much, it might be a half inch. It might be a very slow process, but eventually, and it'll be in your way at some point, but eventually we'll get her there, and then she's more comfortable being out in the open. Let's see, what else? I'd like to have the guardian inviting some friends over. We need her to get a lot of variety. A lot of people say, well, we have kids that come over, we have this person, that person. Different people, different energies is really going to be important for her. So this is a great excuse to go through your social Rolodex and people that you haven't seen in a while, get a nice bottle of wine, invite them over for a meal, get more people coming over if we can. I'd like to see if we can do that like once a day so that we get different people that are coming over and different experiences at both houses. Now, the other house is a little bit more active, it sounds like, than this house. And so saw a little something go by the door. I thought it was a mouse. They're sweeping. But at this house, she has a tendency to move and recuse herself in the cubby of the couch. Where at the other house, she wants to go to the male guardian because I think that he leaves her alone. And at the other house, the kids are trying to pet her, engage with her. So the kids would be well served to try to breadcrumb her and get her to come to them, and not try to pet and show that they love her by petting her and giving her affection. I think it's just overwhelming for her. Now, once you can come consistently on the couch without the breadcrumbing, then the nice thing to do would be to have everybody sitting on the floor. And have everybody sitting about 7 feet apart, at least 3 people here. And then we hold out the treat and say the word come. And if she doesn't come and make a kissing sound like, that'll usually get a dog to look at you. Once it looks at you, start lowering your hand. Go all the way to the floor if you have to. When I start doing this, I want my forearm parallel to the floor. I don't want to hold it up here or down here, because if I say come and she doesn't come and I make the kissing sound, she looks at me and I start lowering it. The lower I go, the more enticing it gets for the dog. Now, first, we might have to just even breadcrumb her when we go to the floor. We might have to put them on the floor and get her to come closer and closer to us. But this is the power of positive dog training, is letting the dog do it at her own time. As long as she's not completely shut down, we would force the issue a little bit if that was the case, because we have to get her moving forward. But the idea is we want her to associate coming towards a new human is something beneficial, it's good, it's rewarding, it's safe, and it's something that I'm rewarded for doing. And so the more that we do that, the more she feels comfortable coming to us, the more confidence she has with us, and the better she'll feel about it. Insecure dogs and dogs that are like this, that usually have high insecurity, teaching them more commands will help. Now, first we're going to use passive training just to reward her for things that she does on her own. But if she happens to do things that's kind of unusual, like she stretches, maybe we pet her and say stretch, or she yawns. Even though those aren't necessarily commands or tricks, it's still another thing that we can do to get her to do and reward her for doing it, which will be a boost for her self-esteem. Grabbing the collar can be hard for some dogs because a lot of times, especially abused dogs, may grab the collar and then pull them around, or grab the collar and abuse them, or did something like that. So for some dogs, that becomes a negative association. So if you give a treat, touch the collar. Treat, touch the collar. And even if it's just doing it with pieces of kibble, just take this. Nope. So we want to keep track of how much kibble we're giving her, because we'll get to a point where there's just going to be not any greater returns. Now, one of the things that I did, I had a teacup poodle that I had to rehabilitate, and it was very insecure, didn't like looking at people in the faces. For dogs, looking at us in the face can be a challenge. So what I did, I'm going to try to manipulate her a little bit like that. Yes, I know. So what I did is I put her on my chest like this. Got her to relax. I'm not pushing her down. I'm just kind of holding her in this position. So I might take a little bit of relaxing. Might have to use the leash and just get her used to it while we're watching TV, just getting her used to it. And what I did was basically when I fed her, I would hold up the treat. And sometimes you might have to use a higher value food item to do this, at least initially. So what I did for her is I used shredded chicken. And I microwaved it a little bit so it had a nice aroma. And there were little, kind of strips, almost like spaghetti noodles. And so what I would do is I would have her looking at me. And at first I just let her take the treat. She wasn't looking at me, she was just looking at the treat. She had a low head. Then after a while, what I started doing is I started raising each one up a little bit more until eventually she's looking at me in the face as I'm giving her the food. Now when she does look at us, one nice beneficial thing we can do is smile. Dogs actually can read a facial expression. So if she looks up at us and we give her a nice smile, a nice positive look, that can help her feel more comfortable and more confident as well. Let me see. I'm trying to think the other things we went over. Eventually I'd like her to have some rules and some structure, like sitting before we let her out a door, having her come out the door after us, things along those lines. But right now, we just want to build up her self-esteem and confidence. Now, she gets groomed. Does she like her groomer?
She tolerates it. Okay.
Grooming is a very stressful situation for a lot of dogs. And a lot of groomers are paid hourly, and their boss is like, get them through. And then, so they're a lot, it's very invasive. They're very grabby. So for her, what we might want to do, I'd had one client, and she gave me this idea. What she did is she told the groomer, she goes, you know what, I want to pay for 2 grooms. And she goes, I want you to spend twice as long with my dog, and I want you to be giving it kibble and little pieces of shredded chicken or whatever we have to do as an incentive, and go a lot slower. So I give you a little bit of chicken. While you're doing the chicken, I might cut a little bit here, a little bit more chicken, cut a little bit here. So we make it a longer process. The groomer is getting paid twice as much, so they're happy to do it. But now we create more of a positive. Groomers are one of the most jobs that you can have, because the dogs are stressed out. There are other dogs in the room that are barking. It's a new environment. There's clippers. There's all these things that are going on. It's really stressful. Another thing you can do if your groomer is nearby is take her to your groomer and just sit in the lobby if you can, or just sit there and give her a meal. Just feed her some high value stuff, so she just gets used to, again, a positive association at the groomer. All right, Lily, am I forgetting anything? Oh, I'm going to try one other thing. I'm going to try to play with her with a laser. I'm going to try to engage with her, her prey drive. Now, they don't have, all dogs have a prey drive, but these guys don't, probably not as much as some other dogs. But if she likes to chase the laser, that's a good way to, get her going around, moving about. And that's one thing, I can't remember if I went over this in the video before I got interrupted, but the more exercise and activities we can get her doing without crossing her threshold, the more metabolism is going to be waking up, her blood flow, her routine. We want to do as much of those things that get her going as possible to get her, and especially things that she enjoys. So take note of anything that she seems to enjoy. We want to come back to that and incorporate a game about that. That's one of the things I remembered I wanted to go over. Scent games. So right now you see she's turning away from me. She's a little bit uncomfortable. She's relaxed. She's tolerating me petting her, but she probably would like to be on her own. So one of the things we can do is scent games. Is the high value tricky trainers that I have a strong smell. Let's say that there is a corner here, or a couch or a chair. Maybe this one. What I would do is take the tricky trainer and draw like a chalk outline on this side of the couch, and then another one here, and then put the treat over here around beyond the dog's line of sight, and lead her, and just put her down right where the scent trail starts. She sniffs it, her nose leads her forward, she gets around the corner, she turns, she follows, there's a treat there. And then she goes and gets the treat. You could say reward or something so you give her a positive association with that as well. But eventually we can get to the point where we play a game where we play hide and seek for the treats. And like she's outside and you go to a certain area and you hide 3 or 4 treats, and then like where are the treats, or hunt, or come up with a one-word command. Every time she finds the treat, say the word hunt when she touches it with her lips. So then when you come in, you have a game that you can do with her. Something else you might want to try with her is some interactive feeding toys. I have a post on Quest Ed, which is the puppy training part of my website, doggoneproblems.com/quest. Your sweetheart. No, I'm sorry. And what I did when I fed him is I had a treat ball, and I filled the kibble up in there. Now we might do this with the treaty trainers, which are higher value. And then what he had to do is nudge it with his nose just to the right amount so one of the pieces of kibble came out and they would eat it off the floor. Well, he had to work for his food. That might be a good thing for her to do, because it gets her interacting with toys, it gets her moving forward, and she's earning her food, which will help her feel better about it. One of her guardians mentioned she likes cream cheese. I would like to see if she likes peanut butter. If she does, we could use a little bit of peanut butter as an incentive, get a Kong. Now, at first, maybe we just put a little bit of peanut butter in with her bowl and get her to create an appetite for that. Yeah. But then we put in a little Kong and give her the Kong and let her chew on it. Now, a little trick is you can take one of the Tricky Trainer livers and put that in the Kong first. There's a little hole on the opposite end.
We have one, actually.
That's where you put the liver treat, so it smells like liver, but the rest of it's packed with peanut butter. So she's got to lick through that peanut butter to get to that training treat. And also, when dogs kill something, they don't eat the whole animal typically. They tear a little hole in the side and they pull pieces of flesh out. The Kong kind of satiates that primal desire. And that gives her something to do as well. Even though she's just sitting there, but she's working at it. So that'd be a good thing to have at the office as well and give her something to do. Also, marrow bones are really good things for that as well. So marrow bone, like a 1/2-inch marrow bone. I like going to the Green Spot, but good pet stores will have these. They'll be frozen. You have to give it a little bit of time for the marrow to unfreeze, but don't keep on refreezing it. Let her get it all out. And for her, we want maybe a 1/2 inch or 1 inch marrow bone. And that, you can maybe, I've seen some people drill a hole through the marrow, tie a string or a zip tie, and then zip it into an area where it's out in the open. So she wants to go and take a bone and go off by herself, and that's not a healthy thing to do either. So if we have a bully stick or something, maybe we poke a hole through it or drill a hole through it and tie some twine to it and attach it somewhere. So you can chew on this really tasty thing, but you can only do it out in the open and near the humans. All right, Lily, you're such a sweetheart. Little White Dog did you right, didn't they? It's one of our favorite rescues in Omaha. All right, well, this is Lily's roadmap to success. Her guardians may have some questions afterwards. She may need a follow-up session. We'll see how it goes for the next month, and hopefully we'll see her come more and more out of her shell. If not, then we might need to set up a follow-up session, work on some other stuff, but we'll hope that we don't need to do that. I want the guardians to call me or text me if they have questions. I would rather you call or text me too much than not enough, especially for a dog like this. I'd rather you start things off on the right foot rather than the other one. All right, Lily. You didn't like that blow. Did I need to brush my teeth? Is that what you're saying? All right, this is Lily's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.